So Yellowstone just started its 5th season, and it is quite literally the biggest show on all of TV. It started back in 2018, and it's kind of this Western soap opera that stars Kevin Costner as the head of the Dutton family, who are these very dramatic ranchers out in Montana. And it was a surprise hit out of the gate. But at this point in its run, it has become a true juggernaut. In the 2021 to 2022 TV season, it was the most highly rated program across all of cable and all of network television, other than football. So like, it was outrating The Voice and NCIS and This Is Us. And a couple weeks ago, Yellowstone got its biggest ratings ever with the premiere of its 5th season, which raked in over 12 million viewers. That number is insane. That is literally 3 times as many people as tuned into the premiere of Monarch, which, if you remember, it was supposed to be the big country music tentpole show starring Susan Sarandon and Trace Adkins, and it was debuting on a big network, Fox, and yet no one really cared about that. In fact, Yellowstone's numbers are so big right now that they're even outdrawing something like the CMA Awards, which ticked up in the ratings considerably this year, but still couldn't touch the number of people that are watching this Western drama about the Duttons. And so with respect to the CMA Awards marketing department, I feel like the title of country music's biggest night needs to be handed over to Yellowstone, because the show has established itself as a key influencer in country music culture, in Western culture. It has the power to mint stars and to make songs hits, and I think the industry would be wise to pay attention to everything about Yellowstone. Right from the get-go, Yellowstone creator Taylor Sheridan and music supervisor Andrea Von Forster made music an integral part of the fabric of the show. Not only did the show feature songs with gritty vocals from artists like Whitey Morgan and Chris Stapleton and Nathaniel Rateliff, it literally cast red dirt icon Ryan Bingham as the series' regular Walker. Ryan's been super buzzy ever since his 2007 breakout Mescalito. He literally won a Grammy for his work on the soundtrack of the Western movie Crazy Heart, and he's just one example of a musician that's brought into the acting universe of Yellowstone, but more on that later. The biggest musical moment of season 1 came in episode 4, when the southern rock band Whiskey Myers was literally featured as the band playing in a honky-tonk, while Beth and Rip, whose will they won't they romance kind of drives a lot of the early seasons, are dancing to their song Stone. After their appearance on the show, Whiskey Myers' old album Mud shot to #1 on the iTunes country chart, and it created a new momentum for the band, which was definitely known in independent country music snob circles, but has gotten a much more mainstream audience. Cody Cannon has actually talked about this on the Whiskey Riff Raff podcast.
I mean, it was pretty overwhelming, pretty life-changing. We never had an opportunity to have a platform to reach millions and millions of people at one time.
And it's clear just from Whiskey Myers' touring numbers how much bigger they have gotten since Yellowstone became a giant mainstream hit. They now regularly play to crowds of like 3,000 to 5,000, and it would not shock me if they end up evolving into an arena band, and this for a band that is not playing on any country radio, that's really making kind of like red dirt rock and roll music. A similar thing happened to the Texas band Shane Smith and the Saints when their song All I See Is You was featured prominently in season 4. It shot them to the top of the iTunes chart, got them tons and tons of new streams, and tons of new fans. They've actually been touring with Whiskey Myers over the past year. And they got the Whiskey Myers treatment and actually got to be in the show in the season 5 premiere. And the show mixes it up musically. Sometimes you get people that are mainstream artists like John Party or Casey Musgraves or Chris Stapleton that are playing on there. Sometimes you get the sort of A-list of the independent crowd, whether that's Sturgill Simpson or Jason Isbell or Tyler Childers. And then sometimes the show really gives exposure to truly unknown artists like Gethin Jenkins, or at the time, Haley Witters. Or one of my favorite bands, the Panhandlers, whose West Texas in My Eye got a very prominent feature. According to Yellowstone's music supervisor, Andrea Von Forster, she's really looking for songs that fit the show's kind of grim, masculine aesthetic. In an interview with Music Row, she said, "We tend to use red dirt country a lot, so artists from Texas and Oklahoma, as well as Americana and country rock. We don't get to use a lot of female artists because of the masculine landscape that we have, but when we do, we like to have bold women." And she's mentioned that she likes that kind of piercing tone that someone like Haley Witters has, and also someone like Lainey Wilson, who was not only featured on the soundtrack, is now a star of the show. Lainey's just having a whole kind of career breakout moment right now. She recently dropped her album Bell Bottom Country, which features the hit Heart Like a Truck. She's also been featured on big smashes like Never Say Never with Cole Swindell, as well as Wait in the Truck with Hardy. She kind of ran away with the whole evening at the CMA Awards, not only winning Best New Artist, but also Female Vocalist of the Year. And then she became a series regular on a little show called Yellowstone. She joined the Dutton Ranch, and her music is getting featured on the show. They just debuted her song Smell Like Smoke, which they've now added onto her album Bell Bottom Country. And that album keeps climbing back up to the top spot of the iTunes country chart, which I know that is an antiquated metric, but you know, we can actually observe that chart and see how something is ranking, so it's still useful to look at. And in a time when it's always either American Heartbreak or Dangerous that is at #1 on that chart, the fact that Lainey's Bell Bottom Country keeps going up to #1 every time Yellowstone airs means, yeah, the show is moving some copies for her. And that chart response to the show is something that people have started to call the Yellowstone effect. There's a guy named Danny Katz that actually wrote an article about this, and Danny is a very intrepid young data researcher. He's written a number of things where I always really like it, but he made this chart, and you can actually toggle and see how many streams something had gotten on Spotify in the lead up to it being on Yellowstone, and then the response after it was on Yellowstone. And it's always such a steep vertical rise once the song is featured. It just kind of gets a whole new life and introduces it to a whole bunch of people who now use Yellowstone to make their playlists. And I get why they would, because the show gives exposure to these amazing underground country or country adjacent artists that the rest of the culture always just seems to like to ignore, that you're not going to hear on country radio, that you're not going to see nominated for a big award or, you know, doing something on CMT. People like Gethin Jenkins and Hayes Carl, or a little guy named Zach Bryan, who the show gave a pretty big boost to when they featured Condemned a couple years back. And interestingly, I didn't know this till researching for the video, the version of Condemned that's on DN, it was too lo-fi for them. They were like, it's just not going to sound, you know, right within the context of our show. So it was actually Yellowstone that linked Zach with Dave Cobb for those few songs that he recorded early on when he made like 4 songs. They did that so that they could use that version of Condemned in the show Yellowstone. So, you know, there's some fun trivia for you. And that's not the only Zach Bryan connection either. There's a member of Zach's band named Noah Legros, who was one of the actors on the Yellowstone spin-off show 1883. And so, you know, Yellowstone is just, you know, it's got its fingers in all sorts of parts of like the red dirt Western country world, or whatever genre you want to call Zach. And it seems like Taylor Sheridan is very intentionally pursuing that connection to the music world. I mean, the stars of 1883, which was a prequel to Yellowstone, and they're going to be making some of these sort of prequel series set in different years until they catch up to the family. Look, it's kind of confusing. There's like a whole Dutton cinematic universe at this point, but 1883 starred Tim McGraw and Faith Hill as the leads of that show, which I would say is a clear sign that now even the Nashville side of country is like, okay, we need to pay attention to Yellowstone over here, and Yellowstone's paying attention to them. The star of the show, Luke Grimes, who plays Casey Dutton, is actually working on making country music and is going to try to have a country career. He's written with Jesse Joe Dillon as well as Ben Hayslip, and you know, I think he's recording an album. We will see how well that works. I feel like none of the stars of Nashville were really able to make it happen. It's hard to make that actor to musician transition, and you know, Lucy Hale couldn't do it. Julianne Hough kinda could do it, but then just stopped. And we'll see if it works. I mean, I used to work in the movies world, and actors are not used to being the product. They're used to just kind of reading what someone else wrote and being really like beautiful and, I don't know, disappearing into their role. And it's a totally different thing to be a musician and to be so your own product, and you have to like live what you write. And I don't know, it's a hard transition, but if there's anyone primed to pull it off, I would say it's probably him, though I am skeptical. And on the whole, I think Yellowstone thriving is great for country music. I mean, I just love where country music is right now, and that we're in this spot that feels so much like that turning point in the early 90s where country realized like, wait, we are cool. We should just be so cool that people want to come to us and wear country clothes and listen to country music, and we don't have to look like everything else in culture. To me, that's what Yellowstone really represents. It is this rare Western show in an era when everything else on TV is like a bunch of beautiful realtors trying to sell real estate in California. And even if I think the writing on the show leaves a whole lot to be desired, and like, they should just get rid of Monica, and they should somehow resurrect that exotic hunter from season 2, and they should do a lot of things different, okay? I don't love the actual show, but I love kind of what it represents in the culture. I love the scenery, and I certainly love how it has become this awesome showcase for great country music. And I don't know how long it can maintain that momentum. I mean, it's so big right now, it kind of feels like it's at that point where The Walking Dead was at, where suddenly everything was becoming a spin-off, and the network had this golden goose that it just wanted to keep, and there's all these attractions, and it's, you know, the train probably will go off the tracks at some point, although I don't wish that upon it, but right now it's in a real sweet spot in the culture, and I just felt like it deserved a video on the channel, and kudos to them for bringing great country music into the mainstream. So let me know what you guys think about the music on Yellowstone, or you can let me know what you think about Yellowstone in general. Am I alone in feeling like in all the early seasons it seemed like Jamie and Beth were gonna hook up even though they were siblings? That's another thought I have, which I should probably delete from the video, but no. Yeah, just let me know your thoughts. If you've never been here before, click subscribe. I talk about country music on this channel, and that's all. Goodbye.